NotebookLM just got its biggest upgrade yet, and I honestly think it's going to be a game changer for how people learn and interact with information. The new NotebookLM has two major upgrades: video overviews and an interactive studio. NotebookLM lets you take your own knowledge base and convert it into whichever resource will help you the most. Now, you can take your research, lessons, reports, meeting notes, or any other type of information and generate a video overview that summarizes and explains the information in a much more visually appealing and engaging way. And this is only the beginning. In today's video, I walk through all of the new updates and explain where I see this going for the future of learning, creation, and knowledge work. I walk through a bunch of different examples on how I would use this if I were a student, educator, creator, or knowledge worker. So I hope that you find this not only interesting from a perspective of learning what is available, but also how we can start thinking about using these tools in the future. I hope that you can find this as valuable as I do. Hi, my name is Callum, also known as Wanderloots, and welcome to today's video on the new NotebookLM, the latest update that brings you video overviews and an interactive studio. A key power of NotebookLM is that you're able to control the information that it uses to produce the resources. You select your own knowledge base to work from with information that you find helpful or trustworthy. Then, NotebookLM grounds its creations in your knowledge base, significantly increasing the quality of the output. Now, with video overviews, we can take that grounded research based on our knowledge base, and we can use it to produce information and resources that are much more visually engaging, which can significantly help how we learn. In today's video, I'm going to walk through all of the latest updates, including the upgraded studio layout and how to use the new video feature. I'll also include practical examples of videos I have generated to show you a full workflow. Finally, I'll give an analysis on who I think will find this tool the most helpful and how they can use it. A reminder that if you find this video helpful, please consider liking and subscribing. I'm working on making YouTube my full-time career, so any support you can give me is very much appreciated. Now, let's dive into the new NotebookLM. So there are two major updates here. The first is the video overview, which I'm really excited to show you. And the second is a new upgrade to the studio, which is basically a way to reorganize and make your notebook a little bit more effective for how you're researching, where you're able to keep things open on the side as you go through and work on other areas in the studio. And also, since my last video, they have this featured notebook section where you can actually submit the notebooks that you've created, and they can be featured at the front page of NotebookLM so that you can help other people learn interesting things. You can then switch between your notebooks, featured notebooks, and notebooks that have specifically been shared with you. But now that you understand what the updates are, let's actually take a look at it. So right away, when you click into your notebook, you can now see that the studio has a bit of an upgrade. And what it does is it split the different key components into cards at the top here, and then the generated resources get put along the bottom. So honestly, this looks a lot cleaner. And what's nice is, for example, with the reports, you can just click on it and you can pop it open. And now if you've generated a mind map just by clicking on this and you open the mind map, instead of just having it remain in this full view right here, if you click the minimize button in the top, it actually gets reduced and stays in the side here. So that's pretty nice because you can go in and now you can continue researching, you can go find or add more sources, and you can continue expanding your mind map as you go through, and it remains on the side. So honestly, that's a great feature that I'm really happy they included as part of their studio update. And then we can close it. You can go through and generate an audio overview just by clicking on it like that. And then that'll be generated in the next 5 minutes or so. And now there's an option to click the video overview. And that's really the key reason that I'm making this video today, because it's the biggest change to NotebookLM. And you have two options here in both audio overview and video overview. The first option is that you can just click on the button like I just did, or you can click the three dots and you can click customize, and then a prompt comes up where you have an option to modify what it is you want the audio overview or the video overview to be about. So you can tell them to focus on specific sources, focus on specific problems or concepts, and the audio overview or the video overview will then be modified specifically to align with your prompt. And in the audio overview component, you have the option to make it shorter, default, or longer. In the video overview at the moment, you can do the exact same thing where you can tell the host, oh, let's focus on this, target this. I want you to emphasize a specific source or show the specific structure of something. So you can give a lot of customization on how you want the video to be generated. And what's cool here too, as you see with the audio overview, just before I go deeper into the video overview, I'm generating this audio overview right here, but I've already generated one down here. So now, not only can you generate audio and video, but you can generate multiple versions of those resources. For example, here in this Agentic AI and the Future of Coding one that I researched for this video, I've created two video overviews here. In the past, if you wanted to create an audio overview, you'd have to create one and then download it and then delete it from the studio and then regenerate it with the custom prompt. But now you can have the general one. You can make as many customizations as you want to, and you'll just get a list of all of those podcasts in here, all of the audio overviews. And you can do the same thing with the video overview. Now let's take a look at the video overview. Just as context here, I went in and I did a discover source, and I did a bunch of research on the overlap between AI, knowledge graphs, and quantum computing. These are 3 of my favorite topics, but I know that they can be kind of complicated to explain to people, and I'm always looking for ways for me to make my videos better, make my education stronger and more streamlined, and generally just more impactful for people. So I thought it would be interesting to discover a bunch of sources related to this and then see what type of video overview it produced. So all I did was just click this button right here. I can't show you again right now because unfortunately I've reached my daily video overview limit, which I think was only 3, maybe 4. But all I had to do was click the video overview button and it produced this.
Ever feel like you're just drowning in information? I mean, we collect articles, we scribble notes, save all these files, and we end up with these huge digital graveyards. But what if all that static stuff could actually come alive? What if we could turn it into a dynamic, intelligent system that thinks with you? I mean, really think about that for a second. What if that knowledge base you've been building for years could suddenly start connecting the dots on its own? Revealing insights you never even thought to look for. It sounds like something out of science fiction, but believe it or not, it's happening right now. The whole game is changing because our approach is changing. For decades, we've treated our notes like a digital filing cabinet. Everything's stuck in its own little isolated folder. The new way, though, it's all about connected thinking. Every piece of knowledge can link to any other piece, kind of like how the neurons in our own brain work. And let's be real, we all face this problem.
Honestly, that was pretty good. I found the hook, the intro to that video, pretty engaging, in part because I'm so interested in all of these topics, but it actually has engaging little graphics for me to follow along with. So I think that's a really powerful tool, especially for people who are visual learners or people who find themselves maybe getting distracted while they're listening to the audio overview or the podcast and would like to have those little grounding graphics that just help them follow along with whatever it is they're trying to learn or research. And as you can see, it's producing a slideshow right now. And honestly, that's totally fine because the slideshows can look quite good. But now I want you to also imagine, what if we combine this with something like Google Flow? Google Flow is basically a form of video generation with VO, but it's almost like Hollywood grade. It's meant to be a filmmaking tool, and I haven't explored it too much myself, but what I'm kind of seeing here as the future comes to be, rather than just having something like that video overview that has a slideshow, you can imagine each slide in that slideshow being the prompt that would then go into something like Flow. So perhaps in the future, NotebookLM will be able to generate full video components that go along with the video overview. So not only are you learning, but you're actually watching something that's continuously engaging, effectively a story that's been curated directly for you. And honestly, I think that's really exciting. And then once you're done with your video overview, you can always download it. So you can just click more, click download, and then you'll be able to download the MP4. So it's also really nice that you're able to share this with people. And there's quite a few use cases that I can imagine that I'll get into in a few minutes here, where I'll walk through how I could see different people like students, researchers, people working in corporations, knowledge workers, creators could all use this tool in different ways. So I'll get into that in a moment. But for now, I just want to show you another example that I did. I've been doing a lot of vibe coding. I've been doing a lot of research into coding and different AI coding tools as I've been building out a few apps for myself. And I was curious, well, what is the future of coding with Agentic AI? So I tried 2 different versions here. The first one was the generic one, AI is learning to code, so what's left for us? And the second one was a custom prompt, specifically asking it to focus on the concept of Agentic AI, which is where you have a team of specialized AI agents working together. So let me just show you what this looks like.
Okay, let's talk about a really fundamental shift in how we build software. We're going way beyond AI that just helps us write code, to AI that can actually be our entire development team.
For years now, we've gotten used to AI as this sort of super-powered autocomplete. Don't get me wrong, it's super helpful, but it's reactive. It just waits for you to make the first move.
But what if we just flip that whole model on its head? What if, instead of being your co-pilot, AI could be the entire team that builds the car from scratch?
That's a good overview of it. I think, in my experience, it can't do everything for you at the moment, but it is getting more powerful. I thought that this graphic was actually a really nice intro. So it's gone beyond just creating basic little slideshows, and it's actually customizing the visual components that I think make it much more engaging. Like the whole point of Agentic AI, for example, is that we have these different specialized people, and you can see here that it took all the robots and it gave them different personalities and different costumes. So that shows that it understands the value of having an agentic framework and how those different pieces of the agentic framework can fit together. So now if I were to get going with creating this, just to research a brand new topic, what I would do is I would go to NotebookLM, I click Create New Notebook, and I would probably go Discover Sources. For example, how can I use AI to help me learn topics more deeply? Research best methods and state-of-the-art practices. So if I click Submit, it will go through and discover a bunch of articles, a bunch of potential videos, PDFs, research papers, and assuming I want all of these, I can click Import. It will all get added to the side here, so it's kind of kickstarting my research. And the key here is that not only is it kickstarting the research, but now when I click video overview or audio overview or mind map, for example, it will automatically ground itself in all of this research here. So what I mean by that is rather than just going to the internet as a whole and generally trying to pull from everything, like for example, ChatGPT might do, instead I can ground it specifically in the resources that I think are valuable. So I should, of course, go through and analyze each of these and make sure that they're actually credible sources. So it's up to me to maintain the quality of information, but having the AI discover sources first is a really powerful way to get going. And then what I find myself doing is clicking on the mind map and just seeing what the major topics are to see if it makes sense. And then again, I can minimize it on the side. And I can always, for example, let's say I want to look at benefits of AI and personalized learning. If I click on the benefits of AI and personalized learning, it pops up with all of those subcomponents and it quickly clicks a search and it uses that to automatically prompt NotebookLM based on the sources that are in here to give me an answer based on that specific question. It goes through and it keeps track of all the sources where I'm able to now go through and find specifically which resource it came from and how it fits together. And then if I wanted to, I could save this to note. And once it's saved as a note, I could then convert it to a source and it gets put on the side here. So this is a cool way for you to go through and keep track of your research, convert it to a note, and then if your note starts to become more of a source, you can just add it as a source, and now instead of 10 sources, there will be 11 sources on the side here. So you can see my initial mind map had 10 sources, but now I would have 11 sources in here. So once I've gone through and tweaked my resources and made sure that it's exactly what I'm looking for in terms of the quality of information I want, then I can go over and generate an audio overview or a video overview or any number of reports here as a briefing guide, study guide, FAQ, or timeline. So there's a lot of potential for how you can use this. Just a quick note, if you're interested in learning more about the specific features that I've been talking about in this video, like the discover sources, mind mapping, and audio overviews, I have a dedicated video that goes into each of those topics and features in much more depth, along with more practical examples on how to use it effectively. So I recommend checking out those videos if you want to go deeper into those particular features. And in line with being able to ground your sources, for example, these are two of my YouTube videos here. So not only was I trying to learn and find different resources that could help me understand AI, knowledge graphs, and quantum computing better, but I also have my own resources that share my opinions. And I could add articles, my YouTube videos, my own notes from Obsidian. NotebookLM accepts all different kinds of sources. So because of that, I can now not only do research external to my own notes and information, but I can ground the research in my own notes or my own videos or my own articles. And that way I'm ensuring that not only is NotebookLM getting the context of what I'm giving it, but I can also start to give it a bit of an understanding on what it is that I care about in relation to these concepts. And I can use that then as part of the customized component of the video overview to say, for example, analyze my how to add AI to Obsidian video and use that as the reference point for when structuring the video overview. So you can start to get into a lot more powerful customizations that really meet your particular use case. And that leads me into the next part, which is I want to walk through a few example use cases that I could see this being really helpful for and who this is going to help the most. So with this new studio in NotebookLM and with the video overview, I think there really is going to be a game-changing way that people engage with information, especially for people who are visual learners and want to access this information in a way that speaks their language, and also for creating resources for other people that save you a ton of time and energy while maintaining really engaging material. So the first group that comes to mind are students. And what I'm kind of thinking for this is you're studying for an exam and you have your textbook and you know you're supposed to focus specifically on a particular chapter or on specific resources for that particular topic. Let's say it's on AI or data science or SEO or history. You can then create a custom slideshow for each exam that you have to go through or each midterm or each topic, and you can have per chapter learning. So you could bring all of the resources related to a specific chapter, drop them into NotebookLM, and then have NotebookLM generate that video overview for you that really targets the specific concepts that you're trying to learn. And what's cool is that you would be able to, and I'll get into this more on the educator side, is you could also identify where you're specifically struggling, and then you could ask the video overview to target those gaps in your knowledge. So it gives you really targeted recaps that can meet your personal needs. For corporate workers, for knowledge workers, I could see, for example, having to give a presentation and you're not really sure how to get started. So you could use this to drop in your resources and you'd be able to generate a test PowerPoint without having to actually build the PowerPoint yourself. And you could pull in all of your data, your analytics, all of the topics that you need to talk about in your presentation and create that overview. And whether or not you actually use the audio component, you could then use that slideshow as part of what you need to give in your presentation. And it's probably going to be more engaging than if you use PowerPoint. Or potentially, you might not even need to give the presentation at all because you could just give the video overview to catch people up and then go have a conversation with them rather than having to sit there with both of you spending your time going through that presentation. So this really would enable also, for example, corporate training, where you'd be able to have resources generated for whatever your company is and what you're trying to train new employees on. That way, the trainer doesn't have to sit there and give all the basic information. The trainer can come in and answer questions at the end based on what the new employee is learning. So this just saves a lot of time for everyone and potentially makes it more engaging. Now, for creators, I think that you could, for example, script a dry run to see how your outline could be interpreted by the AI, how it could then potentially be interpreted by other people, and gives you a really quick way to test your ideas to see how engaging they are before you go through and make the full script or the full video or write the full article. So it helps you potentially test your concepts visually before production and might inspire you to have particular graphics that you could then put into your own video itself. For researchers, I imagine you could drop in a bunch of different research papers that all have complex data, key charts, graphics, a lot of visual information that might be a little dense to just look at or read through, and maybe have the video overview, especially with a customization, focus specifically on particular types of data or particular types of information or concepts that then give you a brief overview on all of the research that you're going to do and help you then dive deeper into it, potentially using the mind map, so you can focus more on the concepts that you actually care about rather than getting lost in all of that overwhelming information. For educators, I think it would be cool to potentially, again, improve your lessons by having your resources dropped in to generate a video overview. You could watch it and then have an understanding on potentially what the student's perspective is going to be on your lesson, and that might help you iterate and make your lesson a little bit better. And as another idea, what you could do is if you have a student who's potentially struggling with a particular concept in class, you could take the resources for that week's lesson, drop it into NotebookLM, and then create a custom personalized video overview on the specific concepts that that student is struggling with. And then they get a personalized lesson that will potentially help bridge the gap between where they are and where the rest of the class is. And that could just be a really way for educators to enable personalized learning to students and really help people learn in the areas that they struggle with. So I'm really excited for that. A few subscribers have actually reached out to me and let me know that as teachers, this is what they've been using NotebookLM for. So I think this is really exciting for them to now have a visual component to go alongside those audio overviews. So overall, I think this is a really incredible update. I think the video overview is going to be more and more powerful, especially when we start getting into something like Flow, where not only is it going to be a slideshow, but potentially a little movie, a little educational movie. Imagine you are studying history and you want to learn about a specific topic. Maybe you want to learn about ancient civilizations, which can be potentially a little bit abstract to learn about because it's so far away from modern reality. You could have the video overview create a little movie that is grounded in historical data and historical research and produce scene by scene or chapter by chapter video for you to watch so you can understand that history without just having to sit and read a paper or read a textbook. So I think there's a lot of powerful upgrades that are happening here, and I think we're just seeing the beginning of what this is going to end up being. And I'm very excited for that future. I also very much like the update to the studio on the side here, the ability of me to be able to not just work with the mind map over here, but to be able to minimize it and then continue engaging with it as I'm conducting my research so that I don't have to keep toggling back and forth, but can just really start to use this as a proper studio. So I think this is probably the best upgrade that I've seen to NotebookLM so far. I was very happy with the mind map and with the Discover sources, but I feel like the video overview and the new studio really helps bring those tools together in a much more powerful way. And just quickly, I want to mention that there are still a few limitations here. So if we take a look here, we can see that it says that the video overviews are only in English at the moment. However, audio overviews can be customized in your settings to be whatever language you want. So I'm sure that they're bringing the custom languages to the video overviews soon. It's just not there yet for the first release. Also, each video that you generate only ends up being about 5 to 10 minutes long, so it might not be long enough for you to do a true deep dive into a topic. But as a workaround for that, you could customize your video overview to focus on chapter 1, and then you would focus on chapter 2, 3, 4, etc. So you can take that limitation of the 10 minutes and just use it to create targeted information based on targeted sources. I also think that prompting is going to start to become a lot more important. The video overview that you get just by clicking on it is going to be a good way to get started, but that customized component I think is really going to start to be a lot more powerful as you learn how to prompt your visualized overviews into existence. Finally, this is only available on desktop at the moment that I'm aware of, and it will be coming to mobile at some point, but we're not there yet. NotebookLM's video overview was honestly more impressive than I was expecting. I thought it was just going to be a slideshow, but it ended up being, well, a slideshow, but with a very engaging audio overview. It felt different than the podcast format and more presentation style, which I honestly found helped keep me engaged with the content a little bit more. And I was pretty impressed with the specific generated aspects of some of the features they were able to generate, like the AI agent system that had each of the individual AI agents. I can also clearly see the path forward from slideshow to full-blown films or short videos that help people learn, especially when you start bringing in VO3 or Google Flow. These slideshows basically end up being the scene generation for the bigger prompt system that will evolve into full video. So I also think it's important to keep in mind that this is the first iteration of video overviews, and I'm sure Google will be expanding them to be even better in the future. I think that by learning how to use NotebookLM now to generate effective video overviews that are customized to how you learn and research, you're actually setting yourself up for these future tools that will continue to evolve over time. And I think that's going to be one of the greatest skills we can learn now, is figuring out how we can use these tools to maximize our own personal learning. If you found this video helpful, I would love if you would please consider liking and subscribing. Your support really does enable me to continue making these videos, so I appreciate it a lot. I will be making these video overviews and these notebooks available for my paying YouTube members, so if you're interested in what I worked on today, please consider joining the membership. And thank you to my existing members. I appreciate you very much. If you want to go deeper into NotebookLM or the other AI tools I've been using, I recommend checking out my AI learning playlist, where I walk much more in depth on each of the features of NotebookLM and how it integrates with my overarching system of knowledge management, specifically using Obsidian and other tools. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you in the next video.